Welcome one, welcome all. Episode 8 of Blue Truth, Rangers Talk with me, myself, and I, Brian Attard. And it feels like a million things have happened since the last time we all got together and talked a little Rangers hockey. Wow. A lot of stuff going on. If you are watching the show live on Facebook or Twitter, follow the Facebook or the Twitter. If you're watching the YouTube replay, make sure that you follow the channel there. Special thanks to Chris Manifest for the intro track. We appreciate that. Big fan of the show, and obviously I appreciate that as well. Guys, a ton to talk about. James is here. Hi, Brian. James, how are you? Billy Sapp, nice introduction. Thank you, sir. Good to see you back again. Alec, what's up, my brother? Been talking to you throughout the week because you know where my head's at right now. There is a ton to talk about with this team and what's going on, and I don't think any of us know what's going on, but it is a wild time right now. It feels like as the days have gone on, and I find myself, rolling my eyes more and more at what this team is doing. The idea of getting harder to play against has taken on a life of its own. And I feel it's gone, way above and beyond anything that any of us really thought that they were going to do. And it's like every single thing that they do is size this and grit that. And it's like at some point, I think you've done what you had planned to do. And we talked about, hey, look, bulk up the fourth line, get yourself a couple of grinders so that you don't see this Tom Wilson thing again. But it's like everything has been grinders, muckers, fighters even. And it's just, I don't know how you guys feel. I want to hear from you in the chat, obviously, because it's been absolutely wild, with everything going on. So, again, a lot to talk about, obviously. And I think what everyone's first thought is the Buchnevich trade, because it came semi out of nowhere, but the vibe that I get is that I think a lot of the base agrees with me on this one. So when you look back on this, the problem was not so much that he was traded. The problem was more the return, right? Because, as we've said for a couple of weeks now, there's really no issue trading Pavel Buchnevich. It's not that he's a bad player by any stretch. He's a very good player for the Rangers last year. But how many $6 million third-line wingers did you really need? And if things go according to plan, then you're moving Kaapo Kakko into a top 6 role. You're keeping Vitaly Kravtsov in a top 6 role. Like at some point, there's just not enough spots. And you drafted these players to play in these roles. And if they reach their potential, Pavel Buchnevich is on the third line making close to $6 million. And we have that problem right now with the way things are constituted with Chris Kreider. James says, how about they teach the current team how to fight? I think we all need a couple of those guys. Alex, trading Pavel Buchnevich was not a shock or a bad move, but that return, right. We're on the same page there. They're two biggest, in my opinion, and I think everybody kind of agreed, tradable commodities were Ryan Strome and Pavel Buchnevich. And it was fine. Like I said, at the end of the day, you can't pay third liners $6 million. You can't. And you drafted players very high. We're talking about the 2nd overall pick and the 9th overall pick, and you intend to use them. But let's call it what it is. Pavel Buchnevich was moved because of Chris Kreider, period. That is the reason. With no ifs, ands, or buts. Because if you're not paying Chris Kreider, then you can pay Pavel Buchnevich. So Jeff Gorton, in his infinite wisdom, and again, I did a lot of nice things. He did a lot of things that my son could have done in trading for Adam Fox and signing Artemi Panarin and drafting Lafreniere and drafting Kakko. They were the easiest picks in the drafts. Ping pong balls make great general managers. But again, in the wake of what he's left, you are paying Chris Kreider $6.5 million for the next 5 years, I think, or 6 years even. I don't even remember. Too many to count. But that contract's not going to age well. He's already, again, out of the top six. But you didn't know that you were going to get Alexis Lafreniere when you're signing that deal. I understand that. No question about it. I get it. But at the same time, this is where you are. No trade clause, no movement clause. Can't get rid of him unless he says it's okay. He's not going to say it's okay. And this is where the Rangers find themselves. Tom Scavetta, keep up the great work. Brian, I'll miss Buchnevich, but I think we'll be all right. Friends over at Review and Preview, love those guys. Check those guys out. Rocket, people need to relax. Cried to sign off a huge offseason before they knew there was going to be a pandemic or get Lafreniere. And this is a very good point. They thought that the cap would be over. When you give Artemi Panarin $11 million, when you give Jacob Trouba $8 million, when you give Kreider this deal, you're doing that with the assumption that the salary cap is going to continue to increase at least somewhat. And that's not what happened. So when we talk about what this team's salary cap situation is going to look like, they may have some money right now, but that money's not going to be there forever. And if you start locking it up in people, it's going to be a problem. And James, I could not disagree with you more that it says it's not the Kreider, it's the buyouts. The buyouts are irrelevant at this point. It's a couple $1 million. Those buyouts go away. They didn't move Pavel Buchnevich because of the buyouts. Anthony, I don't know what it is, but probably not. Why don't you share that rumor? Because I have not heard that. Usually I hear everything. I got my ear to the streets. So, James says dead cap of 4.4 this year, 3.4 next year. That's not there. Again, that isn't the issue. The issue is that you're paying Chris Kreider because the buyouts were fine. The bulk of the buyouts has already passed us by. You can't just let these people take up space on your roster if you're not going to play them. Ron says, I think Kreider does better under a coach like Gallant. Yeah, I would think so. I think a lot of these guys are going to do better under this coach. I really think that David Quinn was overmatched with this team. I really felt that it really wasn't, he was good with the kids. He was not as good with the veterans. And again, the top 5 offensive players on this team last season and the year before pretty much told them to go scratch. They did what they wanted to do. They were pretty on the power play. I mean, they did what they were fine and didn't really care what he had to say about it. And that was probably a big reason why he was dismissed. But they need to figure out what their top 6 is going to look like. And they took a big step in that direction when they got rid of a guy like Pavel Buchnevich. And again, it is not so much the return, the trade, it was the return. You have to find ice time for Lafreniere. He needs a top 6 role, left wing, maybe even on the right wing. Kakko needs a top 6 role. Vitaly Kravtsov needs a top 6 role if they are going to stay on this team. And obviously, barring a major deal, which we'll talk about, all 3 will be here. At least 2 of them will for sure, no matter what happens. God forbid. But again, sins of the past, okay? Look, Buchnevich is gone because Kreider is here. It's very simple math, okay? And the return that they got, a second-round pick next year, not even this year. Sammy Blais from, I don't know if the name is pronounced that. I'll figure it out over the offseason. Again, a gritty type of winger that everything they do is go get guys who are going to start getting somebody's face. If they don't have Chris Kreider, if they had traded Chris Kreider like I personally wanted them to, like I'm sure many of you wanted them to be in a better position. It's not so much that Kreider is overpaid, James. It's how long the contract is with the no move. That's a problem. It's a problem because he's on your third line right now. And in this league with an $81.5 million salary cap and guys like Panarin making 11 and Trouba making 8, you can't pay your third liners $6.5 million. Different kind of player, different level of salary given and allocated to that spot. So you're not going to convince me that anything. Kreider is as streaky as they come. I would have moved him for the return they would have gotten. Guys, I appreciate the likes on the show. If you can like and share, like is better than share. Well, share is good too, but we appreciate that. And Mike Epstein, loyal viewer, how are you doing, bud? Streakiest player he's ever seen. 25 goals a year isn't contract the going rate for that production. Yeah, but if they don't have Chris Kreider, they probably still have Buchnevich. Would you rather have Kreider or Buchnevich? So, Rob Canny, a name I recognize. I think he's the first viewer of the show, but I see him liking a couple things on the BlueTruth posts. I'm still getting used to that, guys. It was my idea for the name, too. For BlueTruth, I would like to see him sign like Nick Ritchie from Boston. Good size winger, would solidify the fourth line. Again, how many fourth liners are they going to have? Kevin Rooney's still here. Everybody has, an erection for Gauthier that they want to stick him somewhere. Goodrow, I guess, goes on your third line. Let's not forget Morgan Barron, who's going to have a role on this team. I sure hope so. Anthony says, rather have Kreider. I don't know why. I don't know why. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you one thing. Maybe you'd rather have Kreider today. You're not going to rather have Kreider 2 years from now. If it's close today, 2 years from now, it ain't. Buchnevich will do very well in St. Louis. Again, I will miss the player. No problem trading the player. But you have to get more than a second-round pick a year from now and a guy like Sammy Blais. And everyone's going to say, and Anthony, I know you and I have spoken about this, why didn't they trade him at the deadline next year? Why didn't they hold on to him and then move him at the deadline? Well, I think because there is a mandate. There's not a mandate. There's a mandate. They have to make the playoffs next year. And I don't think they're going to be in a position where it makes sense for them optically to be selling off. I think those days are over where you have a team at the deadline who sells off. So again, if you intend to give top 6 ice time to your young studs, you have to move out the players who occupy the top 6. And their studs are very simple. 13, 24, and 74. Those are the guys that they're probably going to build around, barring a deal, which we'll talk about. I just can't get over the fact that I had to report this trade, and all they got was a second-round pick next year and Sammy Blais. Not a one. Not a deal to upgrade that center ice position, which we've been begging them to do for a very long time. Didn't do any of that. Yeah. I can't imagine anybody. I mean, nobody watches this show, and I interact with people on Twitter, and we'll talk about the people I interact with on Twitter towards the end of the show. You can trade Buchnevich. You can't give him away like this. And there was a rumor that I read, which I do not believe, that they would have walked away from an arbitration if it was too high. I don't buy that. I don't buy that a little bit. Was there a secondary move that Drury was planning for that maybe didn't come to fruition? Maybe. In that case, egg on him because it didn't happen. If something is still happening, didn't need to trade him at that point. The irony of the situation is we talked about getting a guy like Vince Dunn from St. Louis for a guy that they could protect. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure they protected Sammy Blais. You could have done this deal before the deadline, ended up with Vince Dunn because they lost Vince Dunn for nothing. Vince Dunn would be a very nice addition to this defense, which they've made some additions to in free agency. We'll talk through that. But it's just, you gave the guy away. Now, long term, maybe you don't care because you opened up the spot that you need for your top 6 wingers to play, assuming they're all here. And you didn't want to put another $6 million in your third line. I get that. they're staring salary cap in the face in a couple of years, which we're not going to break down tonight, but we will over the next couple of weeks, as the doldrums of the offseason pick up, barring something major happening, which didn't happen yet. But the decision was, as soon as Jeff Gorton signed Kreider, that was the writing on the wall, I felt, for Buchnevich, the way things have turned out. So, again, share your thoughts. I want to hear from you guys in regards to this. I'm not upset Buchnevich is gone. I'm less than enthused with the return because the return wasn't really much at all. And I think that's where everybody loses it. That's where everybody decides this really isn't what we wanted. Neither here nor there. But remember, to get nothing back is the issue. You had a tradable commodity. And you got nothing back. And if not for number 20, 89 is still here. I will challenge anybody on that one. Alex says just amateur hour asset management. No, I don't disagree with that. And clearly that was the best deal that Drury could have gotten at the time. Now, does that mean you make the deal at the time? Maybe not. Maybe it felt rushed. It felt a bit out of nowhere without the other shoe dropping. Everybody kind of felt the other shoe was going to drop. It was leading to something. As of right now, it hasn't. Buchnevich signed for $5.8 million for 4 years with the Blues. And he'll do well there. They move on from Tarasenko. He can fill somewhat of that role. Another day in paradise. So, for those of you who were watching, actually, just a couple comments here. James said we got nothing back during sell-off of other major assets. I wouldn't say that. Not well. In some cases, you are correct. In others, you couldn't be further from the truth. Dan says I would rather have Buch than Kreider. Buch is a better all-around game. Completely agree. Ron, this is based on our value. What about the league's perception of Buchnevich? And that's fair. Again, I mean, if there was a bidding war, I don't think Drury would have taken a lesser offer. This was the best he could get. So here we are. For those of you who were watching the live NHL draft coverage last week through the Sports Box, obviously appreciate that. I had a lot of fun interacting with you guys during the draft, but you may have noticed that around the Rangers pick, some of the life exited my face because I had no idea what they were doing. Rangers took Brennan Othmann, the left wing from Flint, with the 16th overall pick. Left winger, 6 feet, 174 pounds. You know, all of us walked into this day and thought they're not going to make the pick. Because why would they make the pick? We were supposed to be trading this pick. And Larry Brooks said somewhat omnisciently earlier on the day, you know, this would be the first time the Rangers would have traded their pick day of the draft and for not another pick in ever. They had never done that before. I look at this, I say, you know what? Listen, the player's fine. The player's fine, right? I don't dislike the player. And I see the comments coming in. You know, guys, you know where my head's at, and we agree on this. He's a power forward type. He's got a plus shot, quick shot. One of the better shots in the draft. But the question that all of us have when we look at this is point blank. Why can't the Rangers draft a goddamn center? Why? Why is it so obvious to everyone else? And by everyone else, I mean this base, right? It is so obvious that the biggest gaping hole in the organization is long-term center. And I'm watching it, and I see the pick kind of get leaked on Twitter before it gets up there. And if you go back and watch the footage, it's like my face just is like why? has nothing to do with Brennan Othmann. He will be fine if he ever gets here and finds a place to play, because God forbid, because left wing is what we really needed right now, right? Because you don't have Panarin and Lafreniere for the next 5 to 20 years, whatever. Had to get a left wing. Okay. And then you start looking at the picks that were made after. Zachary Bolduc was Lafreniere center at Rimouski. Nah. Didn't want him. Didn't want Chaz Lucius. Nah. Didn't want Svechkov. Nah. All these guys that everybody thought would have been gone by the time the Rangers picked. Nah. Maybe they just can't draft centers. Because as Matt DeRosa points out, if Lias panned out, we wouldn't have a center problem. Lias was a horrible pick the minute it was made. Hated it. You remember that broadcast? They said, Rangers think you can play right away. Fill that 3 center role. And then I said, we were doing the show live. I'm like, why would I draft anybody with a ceiling of a middle 6 center in the first round? If I'm not drafting elite talent, I don't want it. Hated everything about that pick. Hated making the pick. Hated who there was there. Nothing against the player. The player will be fine. Not a center. Again, yes, you don't necessarily draft for need. We would all be very shocked if they took a goaltender, though, right? And they were just talk of that. Like, at some point, you have to address the glaring hole that you've presented to yourself. Dan Demers, I'm not losing sleep over this pick, but I would rather have seen Bolduc. I would have rather have seen a number of guys. Chaz Lucius was right there. I mean, he was a guy who was supposed to not be there when the Rangers picked. I honestly would have understood a goalie more. At least that is something where, if you don't decide to, keep Igor longer term for financial reasons, you continue to recycle that position. That's a strategy. I have no problem with that. I hope the kid pans out. And hope he does. I hope to see him play. I mean, again, if you look at the draft class, no question about it. I mean, they continually went after size and grit, minus the one guy who was kind of short. Ryder Cole's the center there. Again, centers. I mean, they took centers in the following rounds. But, sorry, I just hit the Siri button. Jaden Grubb, center out of Red Deer, 65th overall. Ryder Korzek was that smaller center out of Moose Jaw, 75th. They traded up for him. Probably their most interesting pick to me was Brody Lamb, the right wing out of Dodge County in Minnesota. Apparently, this guy's a prolific goal scorer. It's high school, so but I mean, they did have some picks that I felt were pretty interesting. Kind of said that Derek Stepan for Elias isn't looking so great now. Actually, I honestly, and I've said this on the show a million times, I have no problem with that. Derek Stepan was 4 days away from being cap locked for 4 years at $6.5 million. And he deteriorated very quickly. The fact that they got anything for him, to me, at that spot, with the cap the way it was, I have no problem with that. They said Lias was a Chris Kunitz type. Well, yeah. I hated it. I hated it because, again, go back and watch it on YouTube. And, Bob McKenzie even says, this is a bit of an off-the-board pick. The Rangers think he can step right in. He's NHL ready. No. They were trying to fill an immediate need with the pick. So, Rock, where I'll disagree with you here is, yes, I agree that you don't necessarily draft for need. But what I will tell you is, if you look at an organizational system and you have 6 goalies, you probably don't draft a 7th in the first round. If the Rangers went with a defenseman, people would have lost their minds because that's all they've done is take defensemen. Now, good job. You have a great pool of defensemen and X amount of spots you can fill with those defensemen. So you have some you're going to have to move on from. I would have just felt better if they got a center. They don't have any centers coming up. They don't. That is the organizational whole. And we'll talk a bit about what that really looks like at the end of the year, the way things look right now, because it looks pretty damn dire. Billy Sapp, I hope they know something that we don't. I do too. Man, I do too. Listen, I hope Brennan Othmann becomes Matt Tkachuk. That's who he models himself after, is Matt Tkachuk. And listen, I understand, that the and Jeff Gordon was phenomenal on TV. You may have heard a rumor the Rangers are trying to get a little tougher to play against. Yeah, salt in the wound. I get it. It's fine, but it just it goes with what they're doing right now. It's big and grit and mucker and anything. I know. Again, kid's got offensive talent. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he went over and played in Europe because the OHL had no year. So he went over there, played, struggled a little bit, but listen, it's a weird year for everybody. I don't think you can really, that's why this draft was so weird too, because you didn't have that full year to even grade these guys. So it was tough. So I'm a big fan of Steve Cornianos, the draft analyst on Twitter. Great follow, great stuff. I mean, I love, his draft report. And he had, Othmann in the mid-20s. And look, these teams are back and forth, right? So it wasn't like the pick was this egregious thing, right? It just, I didn't know what you were doing. That's all. Stepan was a salary dump. Could not agree more. 150%. 150%. They had to get out from under that contract. Dan Demers, Stepan hasn't done anything since. Yeah, I give the game against the Caps, I'm sure he means. Dennis Primo, thanks for watching, buddy. If you don't draft for need or best available, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. No, I mean, again, what's funny? And Dennis, this is the thing, right? Everybody, and I live in South Jersey, so I'm surrounded by the vermin fans of the Flyers. And I am who I am. I don't, trust me, I'm as obnoxious as possible to these people because fuck them. But I was so excited for Kakko and Lafreniere, not because necessarily I believed so much in Kakko and Lafreniere. I did. I loved the players, but the Rangers could not get it wrong. When Jack Hughes went number 1, Kakko was the 2 pick. Universally. It wasn't some guy on the Rangers scouting staff who said, we should take this guy. It was the obvious pick. If the Devils drafted Kakko, the Rangers take Jack Hughes. It's the obvious pick. There was no way that they could screw it up. Because if Kakko busts, or is terrible, everybody got it wrong. Not the New York Rangers. Where you get in trouble is when everybody says it's this player and you think you're the smart guy, you go take somebody else. That's Dylan McElrath. That's what it is. That's what they do. When the Rangers got the Lafreniere pick, it's foolproof. You can't screw it up. Everybody says Lafreniere was the pick. Listen, we did some analysis. I would have loved Quinton Byfield for the Rangers. And if he was at number 2, all day long. But you can't pass up on Lafreniere. Who's going to be that guy that doesn't take the unanimous 1 pick in the draft? It's not going to be you don't want it to be your team. Because then you never live that down if you're wrong. So part of those picks being so important was the fact that they couldn't screw them up. There was no way to get them wrong because those picks were made for you. They were preordained. Lafreniere was the 1 pick for years. Was never a question about it. 2-time CHL MVP. The Devils made that pick for you for Kakko. You can't get it wrong. So, again, this you can get wrong. Now, I'm not saying that they got the pick wrong. I mean, this kid could be a superstar. But you just can't convince me that you look at the way your organization is structured, you see the fact that on your current roster, you have 3 left wings. They're very good. Well, 2 that are fantastic. One's going to be a problem soon. Whatever. You're stocked in a right wing until you got rid of Buchnevich at the time. Whatever. Your defense, you've been drafting forever. You got goalies. Centers. Didn't happen. Othmann will be here for 3 years. Some guys may be gone. Well, you hope it's not Lafreniere and it won't be Panarin. So now you're maxing out at a third line role. God forbid you can move away from Chris Kreider? That'd be great. But I hear you. Look, he may be a piece in a deal. Like, it's not that I hate the player. Like, I don't take it that way. But I just don't think this was the right pick. He could turn out to be great. What the hell do I know? I'm not a hockey scout. But you can't convince me that he was so far and away better than Chaz Lucius or Svechkov or Bolduc, who played with Lafreniere at Rimouski. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't pass the optics test to me. That's all. Kind of Glenn Sather was always known for drafting the biggest guy. I don't think they did a lot of that this year. And then free agency too, which we'll talk about. Steve's awesome. Love him. Love it. Best draft coverage that's out there. I tell him that every year. He's great on your show. Yeah, I'll try to. I'd love to have him come back. I'm actually trying to get also Steve Vogel, who's a big Euro guy. Knows a lot of the picks there. Rangers always reach. They do. And they couldn't have with Kakko and Lafreniere. It's cake. You can't. It is idiot proof. You could be a moron, but you're not going to get this wrong. Always the smartest guys in a room. That's, yeah. John, we're going to talk about Stroman just a little bit. I will definitely be addressing that. Actually, I want to hear from you guys as well. Could also be Drury putting his mark on this team. And I get that. I get that. But I hope that it's not an ego thing. I hope that it's not, this is my team now. Like, if you can have an ego, right? You can listen. There's a move that's a big, huge Ranger swinging dick move they can make. They haven't done it. Maybe they do. It'd be great if they did. You know. Do you give the money to Buch and not trade for Goodrow and pay Gauthier? Everybody loves Julien Gauthier. I'm not saying that I don't think he can be a good player, but I haven't seen enough that I'm going to commit to this guy. I was talking to the guys from another Rangers podcast, Two Guys, One Cup. Check them out. Love good Rangers coverage. I can't get enough of it. It's what when I on my commercial on MSG, I said every third thought in my mind is about the team, and I wasn't making that up. I probably was actually underestimating it. And I love good Rangers talk. So can't say enough about those guys. Check them out. They do really good work. They had Steve on recently, which is fantastic. You want to talk about rolling the dice? Could you imagine Gauthier in the top 6 role? I mean, you can't even get a 4th line role right. My pleasure, my brother. I mean, the problem with him is, okay, now, could he play that 3rd line role? Maybe. I guess he'll get the opportunity. But where does Chytil go? I'm pretty sure they want Goodrow to be a center from the 3rd line. The Chytil, who got a deal today, which we'll talk about, he might be better off as a wing. Which then also kind of moves things around. What do you do then? So not only do you not go for a center now, but the 2 centers you put 2 picks in 2018 or 2017. I don't remember what year. I don't know. I'm 37 now. These years escape me. Is it 2017? Like, I got to look it up now. I think it was 2017. 2018 would have been, it was 2017. 2018 would have been the Kravtsov year. 19 would have been Kakko, and then 20 would have been Lafreniere. Hasn't panned out. Kid's only 21. I get it, but he hasn't really taken the bull by the horns, take on that center role, at least fully yet. They don't think they fully trust him there. I think Goodrow and Chytil might kind of switch off a little bit. Maybe some play center, some play wing. Goodrow's been a pretty good face-off guy in his career. His numbers are okay, better than Chytil's anyway. So we'll see how that plays out. I think Goodrow got a bit too much for my liking. I understand why. Doesn't mean I have to appreciate it. I was saying that I thought that if he was getting 3.6 and Coleman was getting 4.9, I kind of might like to give Coleman 4.9 than, 3.6 to Goodrow. Listen, that ship has sailed. I think the biggest problem that I have with the Goodrow deal is twofold. It's he got a no trade, so everybody and their mother was going to wants a no trade now because Goodrow got one. I scored 25 goals. I want a no trade clause, although his contract kind of a no trade clause by itself. And then the fact that he gets 3.6. I mean, Chytil just signed for 2.3. So now, it's hard to lowball other players and say, well, this is what we have for you. Well, excuse me, you gave Barclay Goodrow, who couldn't score in a brothel with a fistful of hundreds, $3.6 million a year for 6 years. So I score goals for you, so I need more than that guy. It's that ancillary effect. It's what it does to everybody else. It's more of my concern. I understand the need for the player. I get it. Like I can, till I'm blue in the face, we can have this discussion about what the Rangers were missing last year. Okay. And there's a section of the fan base, and I know I'm friends with Sean on Twitter. I see it all the time, that they want the physicality. They want the fighting. And again, I've said before, and I'll say it again. If you are out hitting the opposition, that means they have the puck and you don't. If you are getting into fights, that means you are not on the ice. But if you are out hitting them, think of it's simple physics. I can't have the puck and hit you. So by out hitting you, do not maintain possession, and I can't get scored upon if I have the puck. So if I'm out hitting you, you can probably score on me because you have the puck and I don't. Simple as that. But that's the direction they're going. Which, again, a lot more topics to talk about because there's been a ton going on the past week. I mentioned that. Dan, after the draft, do they have to move on Eichel now? Do you think they stay pat with Strome? Hang around. That's coming with a lot of content on that. I have thoughts on that one. Alex Jurgen from EVT. Go Rangers Stanley Cup next year. Yeah, listen. If they win the Stanley Cup, I got your plane ticket, brother. I got your plane ticket and a t-shirt. Just hold me to that. We'll go. Pandemic my ass. I'll be in New York for a Stanley Cup parade. Fuck that. Bob, hey, Bob. Would love if Drury got Dano, use Barron as fourth line center. Yeah, but you know what the problem is with that, Bob? So, and we're going to talk a little bit about the center spot because I do have thoughts there, but the contract that he got, you don't want to give him that contract. You don't want to give $5.5 million to a third line center because we keep talking about this. The reason that Buchnevich moved on was because you're looking to move Kakko and Kravtsov up, which again, young, more cost controlled, so you can keep that cap down. The cap's a big problem for this team in the next coming years. So I get that. I think Dano, the problem is not offensively talented enough to be a 2. Too expensive to be a 3. I'm really curious to see what LA does with him because they have center prospects out the ass. Turcotte. I think Velarde is a center. Obviously, Quentin Byfield. So I don't really like this move for them longer term. What's good is it takes them out of the Eichel sweepstakes, which we'll talk about because now they have the money in the spot. But they got. I didn't like this. I didn't like that him there. I don't just like the player. Don't like him at 5.5. For what he is. Just me, personally. Chytil's a nice player, but he can't win faceoffs for his life. Correct, which is why I think they might stick him on the wing, which really complicates things, Rock. It complicates things so much. So much. You know why it complicates things? Because they don't draft centers. If they did, it would be less complicated. But they don't, so it is. Chytil was one of the best players before he broke his wrist last year. That is true. That is true. At the time, they were pretty bad, though. I mean, Zibby couldn't get out of his own way. So I understand that. And I hope to see more of him. Listen, everyone, we'll talk about his deal in a little bit, but everybody was so like, oh, you're giving a bridge deal. What if he, blows up? What if he doesn't? And then you're stuck with this cap you can't move. So like, Barron on fourth line's the least possibility. No, I agree. I think he's got that spot locked up. I do. I don't think his neighbor's going to take that spot from him. And I think that he plays the style that Drury wants there. I thought he was a nice addition last year, and I feel that he's got that on lock. I mean, I don't foresee a situation where he's not there. I mean, if he's not making the team, I think we have bigger problems. Dennis, got to stop giving out no trade, no moves like Halloween candy. It's so true, brother. It's so true. And that's why I said, like, I was on board with at least signing Buchnevich, but just don't give him the no trade, because then you are stuck. You have to have some flexibility, because if they sign Zibanejad, circle it, it's coming. No movement, no trade. Panarin's got one. Kreider's got one. Trouba's got one. They get Eichel. He's got one. I don't think they're going to trade these guys anyway. Fox doesn't need one because you're not going to trade Adam Fox. So, and he says Goodrow gets bought out in 3 years. Can't rule it out. Yeah. So, Matthew, I understand your point. And if they won the lottery and got the 2 pick, I don't care. But you can't not take the talent that's there. You cannot take the preordained number 1 guy. I think Quinton Byfield is going to have a phenomenal career in the league. Absolutely. And he would have been a big help to this team. Didn't break that way. Which is why I don't understand why it wasn't the center at 16. The way the ping pong balls fell, you got one. Praise the Lord. And you got another winger. But, Constantly should have gotten one of those veteran centers. Yeah, and I don't. Yes and no. I saw some of that. I mean, Getzlaf got 4.5 in Anaheim. I mean, you want to give it 4.5? I don't understand why. First of all, Ovechkin got 9.5 for 5 years. I mean, guys. I look. No, I like Ovechkin as much as anybody else, and they kind of had to do it because you can't let him leave. But that's a lot of money for a 36-year-old. I don't care who it is. Yeah. Bob said Barron was a center at Cornell. He was. He's not going to be given the role here, I don't believe, at least not to start. But he could be a 4th-line center eventually, or a bottom 6 type center. I think that's what he is. So. Again, it does give you options there. Free agency. So Rangers were. It was kind of a weird. It wasn't like a Ranger free agency day. The biggest signing obviously was Patrick Nemeth, defenseman, 3 years, $2.5 million per. He's 28 years old, 6'3", 228. Shocker. Big guy. He can hit people. However, I like the signing. I think compared to some of the other defensive signings that were out there, look, the guy, you can't have a team full of Adam Foxes is what I'm told. That if you had 6 Adam Foxes, you wouldn't be very good. Now, listen, I'll have that discussion with you all day long. Okay, that's fine. If I got 6 Norris Trophy winners, I'm probably doing fine. But okay, I will humor the person that told me that. And I will say, okay, you need some size on your D. Fine. 3rd pairing guy, he'll be paired up with Nils Lundqvist. I have no problem with that. No problem with that whatsoever. Low money deal. It's fine. No question. They also went and signed defenseman Jared Tenorti, formerly of the Bruins, 2 years, $900K. Now he's 29 and he's 6'6". You probably didn't need me to tell you that part. You probably could have guessed that part, but he's as tall as Michael Jordan. And 7th defenseman, left-hand defenseman. There's a video of him getting in a fight with Tom Wilson and beating the living shit out of him. I'm sure that played in his favor in contract negotiations. Where we are right now as a franchise. So, again, cheap money, $900K for 2 years. Goes to Hartford if it doesn't work out. It's fine. Greg McKegg finds his way back, a 1-year deal, 2-way, to try to get a spot in that bottom 6. Whatever. Dryden Hunt, a winger from Arizona, was signed to a 2-year deal. It's a 2-way first year, not the second year. 25-year-old kid, young guy, 8 points in 26 games last year. But again, they're not bringing him in for his offensive production. Size guy, grit guy. Look, it's exactly, we know what's going on. Like none of the signings should have shocked anyone, right? They wanted to get bigger and harder to play against. At what cost, right? Like, how big do you need to get? How How many players do you need? Hockey is a game that is won by putting the puck in your opponent's net more than they put it in yours. So having guys that can put the puck in the net is a good thing. I think anybody that they sign can do any of that. Drafting, maybe. But they keep going down this route. The solace that I take in it is I feel as though Gallant has some say here, obviously. He knows the kind of roster he's trying to build. And again, he had success in Vegas with a roster that wasn't like overly skilled. Had some players, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't overly skilled. So right now, I am completely willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. But I'm not going to sit here and say I'm overly enthused by it. I mean, again, they got rid of a two-way offensive talent in Buchnevich, who I was fine moving on for, not for that return. And they're just getting, big guys, grid guys. Like, let's remember, like last year, we talk about the word bubble, right? Last year was a bubble in that you only played the same 7 teams. You're not going to play the Islanders 8 times next year. You're not going to play the Flyers 8 times next year. You're not going to play the Bruins 8 times next year. So if you're doing all of this for the circumstances of last year is done. And it's not coming back. So, like, you just hope that, like, this is not, like, all the stuff around, the Rangers, Tom Wilson broke the team. I mean, look, it's hard to argue against that right now, isn't it? Because it sure seems like everything that has been done since that point has been to try to stop that from happening again. But come on. Like, how much of this can you actually do? I'm fine. Look, you have top end talent and you're drafting more of it, but Kevin referring to Nemeth, dude will be perfect as Lundqvist's partner. I sure hope so. I think it is a nice fit. And I do think what I like about it, Kev, is that it says to me they fully expect Lundqvist to make the roster in October. It's not that they're going to put him in Hartford for a while and this and that. So I feel good about that. That to me, the signing indicates it's Lundqvist's spot to lose. Alex says the Nemeth signing was decent. All the others seem to be AHL bound. Very possible. Very possibly. Nemeth was the name guy. Or I shouldn't really say name because who the hell knows who this guy is. But it's not, he's not entirely like a waste of space. He can play a little bit of defense. Mike Epstein size will create space. I hope so, but they're not going to go. But they're not going to play with Panarin. They're not going to play with Lafreniere. God forbid. But that's what the Rangers did in free agency. Again, not done yet. They do have cap space, so that's kind of a mirage because, like I said, money will come due. We're not going to go full cap tonight because, we have time, obviously, between now and the start of the season, start talking about cap and everything else. But, right, they can't go spend like drunken sailors. That's a good thing, so they can't commit themselves necessarily too much. Okay, everyone's favorite topic. Jack Eichel. Where it stands right now, is it possible that the Rangers are bidding against themselves? So what we found out yesterday is it seems like, and this is going to be a big topic, guys, so get me your feedback. I want to hear from you on this. Let me know if you think I'm totally nuts because it's not out of the realm. It seems like the likely suitors, or most of the likely suitors, are out. And what I mean by that is LA went and signed Dano, right? So that's a center spot. You're paying money for it. You probably don't have $10 million. You don't want to give the assets up for a guy like Eichel. Vegas went and gave Alec Martinez $5.25 for 3 years. And then they went and traded for Evgeny Dadonov from Ottawa. Not really sure what the hell that was. But they're also tight against the cap. So it would take a lot of financial engineering to move players out to create the space to get a Jack Eichel. So it seems like they're out. I think Anaheim's in, but I think Anaheim doesn't want to move Trevor Zegras, and I wouldn't if I were them either. So it's wild because I think everybody thought this would have been done by last Friday. That once the draft was over, that it just changes the dynamic. And Kevin Adams will say whatever he wants to about how they're not in a rush and they're going to wait and take whatever deal they think is the best one for them. If this thing goes into training camp, it's going to be an untenable situation. Like I don't think this lasts into training camp. You know, if you remember the Rick Nash deal, so the Rick Nash trade from Columbus, where they gave up Dubinsky, Anisimov, Tim Erickson, and a 1. That was done around this time of year, you know, late July, and that was when free agency was started on July 1st. And the draft was in June. So it was like a month, they call it 5 weeks after the draft was when Rick Nash was traded. So, you know, it's not as if, you know, something's got to happen tomorrow. But Rock's taking a bit of my thunder here, but that's okay. That means we're on the same page, and that's a good thing for me because I respect his opinion a whole hell of a lot. Larry Brooks was dropping nuggets yesterday, like 1,000 paper cuts. First, he's like, you know, trading Schneider would be the mistake like this team always makes. And, you know, putting together Chytil and Kravtsov. So he's right. So what Larry Brooks is saying in the piece that he wrote today was that the deal could be something around, now the Georgiev is different. That wasn't one that I had seen, but earlier in the piece he had written Chytil, Kravtsov, Jones, and a 1. For those of you who watch this show religiously, and I appreciate that. That's why I do it. I love talking to you guys. I had suggested a very similar deal. Strome, Kravtsov, Jones, and a 1. So thank you, Larry. If you like the show, I'd love to have you on, but kind of the deal that I had suggested, very similar to it. The problem with this deal is and Larry makes the point, it does kill a little bit of the organizational depth because you're moving out Chytil and Kravtsov. When I was moving out Strome, it's because, well, you don't need Strome at that point. You're not going to keep Strome, Eichel, and Zibanejad for at least 1 year, or your 1 and 2 centers. Strome can go. I think in that scenario, they probably take Strome and trade him for a winger, possibly a winger from Las Vegas, because Marchessault and Riley Smith can be had. And if, you know, Coach Gallant likes the fit, again, if you do something with Eichel, opens up Strome to be set there, and they could use a center for one of them. But here's where it is right now, right? If that's the deal, do you do it? And I want to hear from you. So give me your guys, if you're watching the show live, I want the comments coming in. Tell me, do you do Chytil, Kravtsov, Jones, and a 1? If that gets it done, do you do it? Yes or no? There's a second part to this, which I'm going to get to, but I want to get the comments in on that question there. Kevin says, I don't know what roster spot the Rangers can trade, though. In my head, it was Buch or Krav. Now they can't afford to trade Krav and an Eichel trade. Well, they can. They may not want to, but they can. Because what ends up happening is, let's say, and I know where you're coming from, Kev. Like, let's say that they move Kravtsov out, right? Then at face value, it looks like Kakko's your only right wing unless you include Chytil. But what probably ends up happening there is one of two things. Is one, they would move Lafreniere or Kreider over to the right, which then alleviates the problem of having $6.5 million on your third line left wing, which, trust me when I tell you, they don't want. Or two, like I said, you take Strome, ship him to Vegas to go get the winger like a Riley Smith or a Marchessault who was here, and we let him out the door. And you fill that spot back. I, unlike Rock, who thinks we can put Gauthier in the 2 spot for 2 right wing. God bless him. I would not. I love playing craps. I'm a gambler, but I wouldn't do that. I would not feel very good about that at all. Let's see. Comments coming in here. Robert says, I think the biggest holdup for the Rangers is finding trades for Georgiev and Strome. Could keep most for current assets, simply flip our returns from those two for our number two. Very possible. If they go get a guy like Eichel, again, you have expendable pieces that you can put together to find a piece that can fit there, and I do think Vegas is interested. Robert Simpson, Eichel's not worth it. Fear is one hit and done. Not say it isn't the same with Mika. We're going to talk about that. You see, all these guys, you're all up in here. Yes, sold. Okay. Mike Epstein, I don't want to include Kravtsov, high ceiling. Yeah. Eichel's got a pretty high ceiling. Dennis Prima, I hate to see Kravtsov go. I think he's going to be a stud. You got to get a gift to get. You once said that Ranger fans overvalue their players. It's so true. I make the deal. And I said that last week. And guys, we do. We have become prospect huggers, right? And that's not to say I don't love the depth of our system. I do, but there's only so many spots. And I'm going to get to a name in a second here where it's like everyone says, oh, you can't move this guy. What happens if we trade this guy? And this guy's name is not Adam Fox, Lafreniere, or Kakko. I have 5 untouchables on this roster. 5. 10, 13, 23, 24, and 31. That's it. Anything else, I can figure it out. That's my core. If I have 5 guys I have to protect from a bomb, that's who I'm protecting. I figure the rest out. John says no. Okay. James, I prefer cap space relief as you propose and giving up more. Could not agree more. I would give them more. If Georgiev gets me some money off of the Eichel's deal, yeah, sure. Done. The cap space is so valuable anymore. So I hate people don't understand the value of cap space in this league right now, especially in a flat cap league. And who knows when it goes up. Anthony, hate to see Kravtsov go. Look, I'm not overly excited about the idea. I mean, look, I've been defending. Remember where I live? I live in South Jersey, right? So the fact that he went 9 and Joel Farabee went 14, like I have to hear all the time about, oh, look at Joel Farabee. Where's your boy Vitaly Kravtsov? And I'm like, he's not playing yet. Let's pump the brakes. Oh, Islander fans, Oliver Wahlstrom. You took Kravtsov over Wahlstrom. Wahlstrom's playing. It's fine. I mean, Kravtsov had the highest ceiling of anybody at that spot. Of course, that's my pick. Sure, would I have wanted Svechnikov or Zadina? Sure. Wasn't there for me. That's fine. Alex says swap Strowman for Georgiev and or Georgiev for Kravtsov, and I do it. Don't think it gets done. Yes, you have to give up someone. Rangers didn't want to trade Dubinsky, the Nash trade. And really, what did Dubinsky turn into? Honestly. See, this is what we do. We think we have... Might I remind you, this team hasn't made the playoffs in 4 seasons. So it's not like you have a bunch of players can't move. Again, you have to give to get a player of this level. I was talking to I was texting back and forth. Actually, I was talking to Jim Schmiedeberg on the show last week, and I said, Jack Eichel should not be available. Like, this is not the type of player that should even be available. He only is because Buffalo is managed by morons. Take advantage of the situation that's provided to you. Dan says, take the deal. Robert says, when was the last time NHL Network was showing Eichel highlights? Not feeling it. Well, when was the last time NHL Network was showing anybody from Buffalo? And I love, this came up, a buddy of mine, Anthony Morel, who's a Flyer guy. You know, we talk hockey all the time. He's a smart guy, just Flyers fan, neither here nor there. He's like, he might be a bad locker room guy. Dude, like if you were on a losing team in goddamn Buffalo, you'd probably be pissed off too. Because you're thinking to yourself, like, I'm contractually here for the next 5 years. This team stinks. We can't do anything. And as good as I am, it's not going to matter. Why? Of course you'd be pissed off about it. Like, I love these people. Oh, he's not a good locker room guy. Why? Because he wants to get the hell out of Buffalo? So would you. If you can handle losing like that, and I'm a tank guy, right? I'm a guy who says you're not going to win, lose, tank for higher picks. But if you're a guy like Jack Eichel and you say to yourself, this team, I need to get the hell out of here. Now you're a bad locker room guy because you don't want to be in a losing team? Really? Really? People just romanticize the way this is going to work. Eichel's 25, not 30. Thank you very much. We're getting to that. James said Wahlstrom got no play versus Tampa. He did not. Probably a problem for, Barry. They lost that game 1-0. Might have wanted like an offensive player, I think this Zizekas train went by the wayside when they got Goodrow, but I think he's signing with the Islanders anyway. Fuck him. Anthony, I would have added Shesterkin as a key piece in the Eichel trade. Oh, God. No. You don't want to do that. Kosa's not going to play for 5 years. Goalies don't play when they're that young. Dude, remember, Shesterkin was drafted in 2014. These kids don't play at goal that young. Only the Flyers brought Carter Hart up for reasons, unbeknownst to me. But, no. I can't, brother. I can't go with you on that one. I think Shesterkin is one of my keepers. I can't. No. Yeah, you're gonna have to pay him. Sure. Sign him long term right now. Give him 8 years. Give him 8 by 5 right now. It's fine. He's not Lundqvist. He's not going to make 8.5 for 10 years the way Lundqvist did, whatever that deal was. But he could be the next elite goalie in the league. Everybody thinks that. I mean, his numbers bear that out. Diamond in the rough, 4th round pick. I was actually at that draft when he was drafted here in Philly. And yeah, no, I have no qualms. Igor's my guy. I'm fine there. Alex, did he move Kendra Miller in the deal before Kravtsov? Yeah, but then that left side D gets real thin real quick. And you're going to tell me then the right wing gets real thin real quick, and I can understand. But just going to losing his stick, trying to kick the puck in the net was the last highlight from Buffalo I saw. Actually, the last highlight from Buffalo I saw was Lexi Lafreniere scoring that overtime goal in January with nobody there, naturally. Robert says Jones is odd man out anyway. Chytil's odd man out. We don't need the 1st round pick at all. Kravtsov's the hardest pick to swallow. Yes. Assuming the neck injury is cleared. Yes. Matthew says lock Igor up. Don't give him 15 years. So when we talk about Jack Eichel, the question here to me is real simple. Now, a lot of you guys which I love the interaction. Please continue. A lot of you guys said you would do the deal. As Larry has astutely pointed out, if you bring in Jack Eichel at $10 million, you probably can't pay Mika Zibanejad. So this is really where the organization is at a crossroads. Mika's not signed after this year. Ryan Strome is not signed after this year, which means the only center you have signed for 2022-23 is, I guess, Philip Chytil and Kevin Rooney. I mean, think Rooney signed past this year. So they're between a rock and a hard place. If they don't do this deal for Eichel, Mika Zibanejad has the organization by the balls. Agent walks in and says, hey, Chris. What's up, man? Hey, listen. You have no centers except for my client, Mika Zibanejad. We know you're not going to pay Ryan Strome. You know you're not going to pay Ryan Strome, so let's just put that onto the side. My client would like 8 years and $11 million a year. We're prepared to go to free agency if we do not get a deal in that vicinity. And if we go to free agency, Chris, you don't have a center on your first line or your second line. So, yeah. Here's the paperwork. They are in a precipitous situation right now. Because, guys, seriously, this is business at the end of the day. Mika can say whatever he wants to in the media, and I'll say, oh, I want to be a Ranger forever. Yeah, that's great. Then take less money. Would you rather pay $10 million a year to a 24-year-old Jack Eichel for 5 years? Or would you rather pay $10 million a year to a 29-year-old Mika Zibanejad for 7 years? And that's the question. By the time Eichel's done his deal, he's Mika's age now. When Mika's going to be done this deal, he's going to be 36, which means that 2 of those years at $10 million are to a 35 and a 36-year-old. Is that really where you want to go? Is it really where you want to go? You can always find a winger. Rock says, I agree. Kevin says, are we coming to a Lundqvist versus Schneider on the right side decision soon? That's my next point. I love you guys. Center and D much harder. Kana says center can shift to wing. Wings usually can't move to center because a natural winger. No, I thought wasn't he drafted as a center? I'm almost positive he was drafted as a center. I got to look now. Mika Zibanejad in the 2011 draft was drafted as a center. No, I think he's a natural center. Would Mika take a Gabe Landeskog contract? I think Mika wants the money. I think he wants 10. I think he wants 10. So, 8 by 8. Don't think it gets done. Don't think it gets done. Listen, put yourself in Mika's shoes. The sack is in your hand and you can grab it. What are they going to do? What could they do? He owns them at that point. Owns them. They did this to themselves. Why? You didn't draft any centers. Maybe because you don't know how. I don't know. But you didn't draft them. Not the last couple years. You moved up for Braden Schneider last year, and you took Brennan Othmann last week. I'm not giving $10 million to a 29-year-old. Thank you. And I think we're all in agreement. That's where it is. In a cap world, Eichel was a smarter play from a pure financial point of view. However, his neck injury really worries me. Yeah, but I think that's good. Is it possible that's just horribly overblown? Like, it doesn't, he hasn't really, he's been a pretty good, solid, injury type guy his career. I'm not saying there's not an issue. I think it might just be overblown in the media because that's, it's like sex sells, that news, gets the news cycle going. If you trade for Eichel, you keep Mika to the deadline and then deal him, then no. They would keep him for the remainder of the season, and then he'd probably walk for nothing. That's the reality of it. Because then they want to put them together for a year. So, Billy Kuhn, do what you have to do to get a player like Eichel. He shouldn't be available, guys. He shouldn't. Stars don't come do. Who does? When was the last time like this? Was it Rick Nash? Where an elite player, a high pick, wanted out like this? I don't remember anybody. And I don't remember anybody else where that team. Think of the Joe Thornton deal. What the hell Boston get? When you trade a star, you don't win that deal. So to me, the chips are falling good for the Rangers. If the Rangers get the deal that they want, then I think we're probably going to be very happy with it. Mika will be solid for the long haul, barring no major injury. Yeah, okay. So again, James, are you prepared to pay 34-year-old Mika Zibanejad, 35-year-old Mika Zibanejad, and 36-year-old Mika Zibanejad $10 million a year? Because I'm not. All of this has happened. And look, I love Mika Zibanejad. Please don't get me wrong. I love having him. Talked to Jim last week. Is Mika Zibanejad a number one center? He is on this team. Is he on other teams? I don't know. I think I said on the draft, how many legit top centers are there in the league? There's not 32. There's not 32. Might be a dozen. Jack's in there. Mika ain't. Right, I love Mika's Zibanejad. Robert Simpson, great point. I'm sure I make a couple of them, but thank you. Who will break first? How healthy is Eichel? That's really what's important. Look, they have other teams that are interested. They just don't want to pay the price. So it's not as if, Keep getting NBA draft picks on my watch for some reason. These guys don't come available. Like, I don't want to repeat myself, but it's true. Like, they don't. Dennis Primo referring to Mika needs the money, one concussion away from hanging him up. Well, listen. Okay. You want to give that kind of guy 10 mil for 8 years, 7 years? Matt DeRose, the pre-COVID contract we gave out will ultimately doom us. Listen, those guys aren't here anymore. And, it's funny because, I make this point to a lot of people. Like, for example, we were just talking about a friend of mine, who's a, Flyers fan. No, sorry. Don't make fun. Talking about specifically, look at Minnesota. Minnesota had to buy out Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, and look how much they have in dead cap and this, that, and a third. But if you go back and think about it, right, this is why general managers sign these deals, because either it works out and you win and you keep your job and nobody cares because you won, or you don't win, you get fired for not winning, and it's somebody else's problem anyway. So if you're of the belief that Jacob Trouba's contract is a problem, okay, let's go with that. It's not Jeff Gorton's problem anymore now, is it? Not even John Davidson's. You think Chris Kreider's problem is contract's a problem? Okay. It ain't Jeff Gorton's problem. He ain't here anymore. Got fired. So GMs will do whatever. Again, job one to get hired. Job two is stay in the job. So they'll do whatever they need to do. They need to help the roster right now to try to win right now to keep the job longer term. If they get fired, somebody else's issue. Liz Predner gaffed. Is Buffalo asking just too much? Yeah, because Buffalo is going to go into rebuild again. They're trying to set themselves up for it. And they just got done doing this. Sam Reinhart wanted out, ended up in Florida. Rasmus Ristolainen, who stinks, by the way, got a first-round pick and went to the Flyers. And this guy's the third guy. The only other guy is Rasmus Dahlin, who probably was just happy to be there. Whatever. Who knows where that goes. But they, to them, need to maximize their return because it's Jack Eichel. If we're doing this again, building again, we need to get a head start on it, which is why they don't necessarily want, like, they wouldn't have wanted Buchnevich because they want younger players and players that are cheap and players you can build around. That's why Owen Power went number one. Like, they're trying to suck next year the way we did to go get Shane Wright. Alex says, Brian, I just hernia disc in my neck, dealt with via surgery, similar to what he has. I'm very looking to trade for him, knowing how I feel and what I know. I hear you on that. And while I'm sure that you are in tip-top shape, my friend, you are not a 24-year-old elite athlete. That I know because we talked about it. Again, it's different. Like, I think he'd be fine. That's not even my concern right now. My concern is, can I get this guy giving up assets that I am comfortable with? If I do that, I think the rest falls into play. Mike Epstein, he'll hope they discuss contract with Mika. Object is to have them both. I don't think they can have them both. You can't. It's mathematically impossible. You can't. You're two $10 million guys. I mean, where do you sign Kakko? Where do you sign Lafreniere after that? So, with this cap situation, then Kreider really hurts you. And to a point, Trouba does. Again, you make those deals thinking the cap's going up. I get it. It didn't. Global pandemic. Nobody saw it coming. It's fine. But the NHL is not saying, well, we're going to let you bring contracts down to make fun. No. 81.5 is the cap. Ovi at 35 going strong, plays more physical. That's Ovechkin. He also has a lot of goals. But that's the question. That's the question that they're asking themselves right now. My answer to that question is I would rather pay Eichel for the next 5 than Zibby for the next 7. And I love Mika Zibanejad. It's just, this is just business. It's Eichel will be 29 by the time his deal's done. Mika's 29 now. You are paying Mika for what he's done, not what he's going to do. It always happens that way. This is why Ryan Getzlaf is making $4.5 million this year. What, do you think he's going to give you the production of a $4.5 million player? No, but he's your captain, older player, franchise face. That's what you do. Can anybody sit there and tell me that the next 5 years of Mika Zibanejad are going to be better than the last 5 years? Do you think so? I don't. Just father time. No player 29 to 34 is better than 24 to 29. So on top of everything else going on for them, if they don't get Eichel, Mika's got him. And then Mika calls the shots because they're out of options. They did it to themselves. They did it to themselves. Alex says, no, he's not with that. Far from 24. The next phone will do a cross-check whiplash. It's just so risky to trade pieces for a risk like this, in his opinion. 100% healthy, different story. Yeah, 100% healthy. He's not available. That's the thing. That's why he's even available. And what is the biggest hole that we have? Center. It still is. And it's going to be, and it's going to get worse. This is a slam dunk to me. I think you get the player. Especially when you're the one just dictating the way it's going to go. But it's funny because, again, in my quest to grow BlueTruth and the Sports Box, the network, I've been a lot more active on Twitter lately under the BlueTruth handle. Actually, tonight is the first time we are live on Twitter through the BlueTruth page, which I finally figured out how to do, which is nice. Sometimes I'm tech smart, sometimes I'm a moron. And I interact with people, and all of a sudden everybody's gone 6 at midnight for Braden Schneider. Which is hysterical to me because most of the people who tell me like, oh, you can't trade this guy have watched about 4 minutes of a YouTube clip and that's what they know. But you can't move this guy. I saw a clip. You can't do it. Is Braden Schneider, like, let's just say that Buffalo says, listen, this is Schneider over Jones and it's done. Schneider instead of Krasnov and it's done. Like, Schneider is the guy. Schneider is their Libor Hayek with us with the McDonough deal, which didn't work out clearly. But whatever. And Ranger fans say must keep Braden Schneider. I had a Ranger fan tell me today that he would trade Adam Fox before he trades Braden Schneider. Okay, sir, you need to be medicated or stop the pills to say something like that. Braden Schneider's never touched the NHL ice. Adam Fox won the Norris Trophy. The hell is wrong with you? Had someone today tell me Chytil's better than Jack Eichel. It's fan base sometimes, guys. I mean, look, I we all have our bad apples, but I mean, like, it's ridiculous. And even before free agency, and I tweeted this, actually kind of got out there. Everybody talks about, oh, we need to go get Landeskog, need to go get Dougie Hamilton, need to go get this guy, go get that guy, and oh, you know, it's the Rangers, they got money. Do you know what a salary cap is? I had somebody argue with me on a Facebook group that he said, you're the New York Rangers, you can't lose guys over money. I'm like, you know, it's kind of funny, sir, but the salary cap doesn't give a fuck what team you are or where you play or what city you're from. It's math, bro. Did you fail? Can you use a calculator? Borrow mine. I don't get it. But at the end of the day, right? And somebody brought this up. I'm not sure who actually brought this up. There were some comments coming in about this, so I want to address it. Where is he going to play? He is a right shot defenseman. He's on the right side. There are 3 right shot defensemen on the team. One of them is Jacob Trouba, who is signed for 5 more years with a no movement clause. Another is Adam Fox, who just won the Norris Trophy in his second year. Second player to do that, other named Bobby Orr. Nils Lundqvist is penciled in as your third righty defense. Offensive type player. Looks like a pick we really nailed. Now, I may not be a math professor, but something tells me if I have 3 spots and they're filled by 3 guys, I don't have a 4th. So unless Braden Schneider goes to the left side, where's he going to play? So then I ask you, is that the reason that we're not going to go get Jack Eichel? We should have taken a center anyway last year, okay? When that was so stupid that they didn't take a center last year, it would have helped the situation they're in now, but that's the way everything was dealt. Those guys aren't here anymore. And JD getting fired up that you got a defenseman because you didn't have 100 of them already. And that's your deal breaker? We're not talking about Lafreniere. We're not talking about Kakko. We're not talking about Fox. We're not talking about Shesterkin. Braden Schneider is going to be the reason that you don't go get Jack Eichel. By the time Braden Schneider plays, what's Panarin? What is Panarin at that point? If Panarin is your best offensive player, what is he? He's not who he is right now, Father Time. We cannot look. I am very happy with the prospect system, but right now that's all they are. Some better than others. They've done a very nice job in building it. Your roster's what it is. Are you not going to get an elite number 1 center, which should not be available because you're going to protect Braden Schneider, the 19th pick in the draft 2 years ago? No, last year, I should say. Shit blows my mind. Oh, Braden Schneider's like a Barry Beck. The fuck Barry Beck ever win? Braden Schneider's like a Scott Stevens. Yeah, Scott Stevens, you would know who the hell Scott Stevens is if not for Marty Brodeur. Come on. Be realistic. Stevens was an offensive defenseman before he went to New Jersey, by the way. Look at the numbers. When he went and started playing for the Devils, his numbers fell off a cliff. They started knocking people out. And again, I have no doubt there is a sect of this fan base that would absolutely love Braden Schneider because they want a guy who can knock people on their ass and play that heavy hit. And I'm sure he's got offensive talent too. Nothing against Braden Schneider. Might I remind you, we are referring to Jack Eichel, who is 24 years old, was the 2nd pick in his draft at the position that the Rangers need the most, and they'd be trading for the position they have the most talent in. Why do we do this? This fan base drives me nuts. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts. Connor says Buffalo asking way too much for Eichel, especially how they mismanaged the Reinhart Ristolainen, and I agree. James, imagine Eichel on an actual NHL team. If he's putting up like a point per game in Buffalo, my God, what's he going to do when he's playing with Artemi Panarin and Capo Kakko? Lafreniere, Adam Fox. Robert agrees with me. Fox, Trouba, Lundqvist. Schneider doesn't fit. Thank you. Billy Kuhn, Lundqvist over Schneider. Thank you very much. Kind of says this is not the NBA, NFL. You can get away with going over the cap. That is correct. The cap is a hard number. You can't go over. And James, I love you because I cannot. I've been banging this drum. The salary cap is meant to level the playing field. It does not do that. There are teams like Tampa Bay and Nashville and Vegas and Arizona, maybe not Arizona, but Florida. And now I think Seattle also has no state tax. I think I heard that, which is, I thought they would. Where these teams have an inherent advantage because there's no state tax. Their players make the same amount of money and on face value end up with more. Cap should be adjusted for state taxes. I could not agree more. Bob says salary cap's frozen at 80. That's 5 years with $1 million increase in salary. Yep. So it ain't going up, guys. It's wild, but tell you what, at least Eichel's got cost certainty. You know what you're going to pay him. Not going up. Anthony, bye Schneider. Yeah. I mean, look, I like the player, but if you're also going to play on the left side, which they're deep there too. Lindgren is there. Keandre Miller is there. They like Zach Jones. Zach Jones is fine. They still have Matt Robertson. It's not like they're like, look, should have taken the center. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. You're right on, man. I mean, you're dead on. You cannot just continue. If they took a defenseman the other night, guys, I would have just been on air, live. I would have literally gone into a curse fest. The fact that I didn't is my self-control with a left winger of all things. Kind of says dump Georgiev in the Eichel trade. Yes. If that helps Buffalo, sure. All yours. Kevin, call me naive. I assume a trade for Eichel means the Rangers doctors examine him and have a plan. Gigantic question mark shouldn't be one. Yes, they would get the medicals. I mean, do you think that Chris Drury is going to give up these assets sight unseen? Probably not. Hey, can we look at the x-rays? Cool. Docs are like, yeah, it's whatever. It's fine. Okay, cool. Deal. I just can't sit here and say that, you know what? Listen, we really like Jack Eichel, but you know what? This fourth right-handed defenseman that we have, like, I can't, stop breaking my balls. I really can't give you this guy. You want this guy? If it came down to it, if that was the what gets it done, no one can tell me they wouldn't give up Braden Schneider. They may not want to, but that's not gonna stop it, in my opinion. It wouldn't for me. If I was GM and that was the stopping point, it'd be done by now. It'd be done by now. Matt DeRose, I love the talent pool. We have to make trades. I just don't like the guy making them. Well, yeah. I mean, again, I think he's holding his cards here. I don't think he's, if this is the poker game, I don't think that he is. I think he's playing the game. And if we're the only bidder left, like the only serious bidder left, because let's remember, somebody's got to have the cap space to be able to take the contract. And if I take a quick look at the teams right now, the teams that have $10 million available in cap right now, this moment, are Columbus, Calgary, Carolina, Vancouver, the Rangers, Seattle, the Islanders, the Ducks, maybe, Minnesota, maybe, but I think they're out. Nashville, New Jersey, Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit. So, if we have a chance to get this center, we have to do it. Remember, he's 24. So, as our wingers grow older, they're growing older with the center that's not 29. He's 24. And I'm telling you, we shouldn't be available. There's no way. Antonio, my brother right there, just joined and was asked, what can we get back for Georgiev? I think a throw-in the Eichel deal is probably the best case right now. I don't know other than that. Wants to be a starter, but how many teams need starters? Maybe Arizona because it just got rid of Darcy Kemper. Again, it depends. We've already done that goalie trade with them before, so maybe there's some lineage there. But if Buffalo right now has two goalies who stink, not that Buffalo doesn't stink, but Georgiev's young enough to build around, I think he might be of interest to them. If that's what gets the deal done, fly him to the airport. Whew. We just did an hour and a half. I felt like 10 minutes. Talking Rangers hockey is the easiest thing for probably all of us to do. It's so easy. And the time just flies. I have an absolute blast. And thank you for spending the time with me talking Rangers hockey. Obviously, if something big happens, we're going to do a show about it. But probably over the next couple of weeks, it might be every other week that we do a show because now we're like in the period of time where there's not as much to talk about. But obviously, something big happens, we'll be talking about it. Again, if you're finding this on Facebook today, make sure that you give us a like on the BlueTruth page. On Twitter, follow us at BlueTruthSB. If you are watching the replay on YouTube, make sure to subscribe there. But also, listen, I love interacting with the live audience. So if you have some time, obviously, usually Thursday at 8:30, what we normally do. I like to post on the BlueTruth Facebook page when we're going to do shows, so at least people know about it and they'd like to make plans, which, I mean, come on, guys. I obviously appreciate that. At least you know about it. And I appreciate the guys who, they'll message me, tell me about, what they thought and they liked it. I mean, this is fun. This is not work by any stretch of the imagination. I can talk Rangers hockey for all. I mean, ask any of my friends. They're probably sick of hearing about it because they also don't like the Rangers, and oh well. That's what I want to talk about. So you have to listen. Thumbs up from Kevin. John Kenya, good show. Appreciate that. Robert Simpson, thank you for watching the show. Anthony, great job tonight. See, I like when we don't argue. I know we're like on different parts of some of these issues, but we appreciate it. I obviously appreciate that. Dan Demers, good show, Brian. Thank you. No, thank you for taking the time to watch and taking time to interact. And again, that's what makes doing this fun, because we all love this team. We all want the team to do better. We all may have different opinions necessarily on the best thing to do, and that's great. Let's talk about it. I'm not saying that I'm right all the time. I'm more wrong than anybody. I'm on Facebook and Twitter twice a week talking all kinds of nonsense, and it's like, what do I know? I don't know anything more than you guys do. Brett Anderson, great stuff. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Like the page. Appreciate the like there. Robert, see when we get Captain Jack. Hopefully it's a show tomorrow. James, well done. I always appreciate the kind words from you. Matt DeRosa, great show. Thank you. Alice, see you next time, my good sir. So listen, hopefully the next time that we all convene, we can start ordering number 15 Jack Eichel t-shirts. I would like that personally, if the deal is right. I have said from the jump, it's got to be the deal that we're comfortable making. And I think if it gets done, guys, I think it's going to be. I don't get the feeling Drury is going to overpay. So let's see. I'm bullish on the idea. I think it changes the dynamic of this team for a long time. And if not, really tough questions coming up with this. Really, really tough questions because, like I said, we have no centers signed after this season. And I don't think you guys want Ryan Strome signed for $7 million a year. I know I don't. That's probably what's going to take to get him. Let Vegas do that. Not our problem. So thank you guys for watching Blue Truth. We will reconvene when something's going on. Again, follow the page. Keep your updates there. I'd like to try to do a good job of getting the news out there, especially while the signings are happening. Didn't even get a chance to talk about Chytil's deal. $2.3 million for 2 years is great. So I'm happy with that. I wasn't really unhappy with a lack of a deal there. So absolutely. Dan the Mercy was going to overpay. Excellent point by Dan. If he was going to overpay, he'd have done it by now. Excellent point by you, sir, and I completely agree. Bob, appreciate that. Dennis, thank you. Guys, I'm going to go use the bathroom. We'll see you soon. Oh, wait. There we go. All right. We'll see you soon. Take care.